area, and we'll hear this from our panelists, is male-dominated. And she was a black lady going into work with a male, particularly white-dominated boardroom. And they would say that there was a meeting every single morning at 6 o'clock at the mine. Every single morning, 6 o'clock. She has a child. Now, what is she going to do? She's single. She had to make an arrangement with the teacher, her little child's teacher that would go to a school, and would have to drop the child off there at 5 o'clock in the morning, rush through to the mine to sit there, because if she wasn't there, it would show you that, she doesn't care, she doesn't show up, and that's just typical that a woman is in this position. And she would do it. And she showed up every morning, banging on the teacher's door, leaving her child there at 5 o'clock, rushing to the mine, and sitting in this meeting that probably only ever started at about 7. It wasn't important. It was something they could have done later in the day. When she eventually found the courage and the guts inside of her, she said, the first thing we did was cancel that morning meeting. She said, because you don't understand. You don't know what I have done to get here, and it is not necessary. And these are the things that I think, whatever industry it is, we don't put ourselves in other people's shoes. And when we talk about empowerment and we talk about transformation, this can never happen until we put ourselves in other people's shoes. And I love that story as an intro into what we're about to talk about now. It may not even touch on that, but I hope it does in a way. So ladies and gentlemen, to help me discuss this, let's welcome up my panelists for this discussion. Sereme Mapaka, who is the CEO of Methano Group. Please come on up. There we go. You're sitting with the loud people. So you mean you got all the energy as well. I'm so glad. Lemogang Pitswe, who is the CEO of African Exploration Mining and Finance Corporation. Please come on up. Lemogang, are you here? Yes, there you are. Come on up, come on up. You're so quietly coming onto the stage. And then Farana Budram, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Avita Mining Innovations. There you are. Thank you. Snap, you see? Clever, clever. You know what I'm saying? And Clive Govender, the Chief Executive Officer of Black Umbrella CGC Consulting Pty Limited. Good to see you. Thank you. Come on up, have a seat. Okay. If you don't, you can sit over there if that's okay. I'm going to hide behind this because this hides you away. I want you to be visible. Thank you so much, everybody. It's great to have you with us and to talk about an issue which, funnily enough, we actually haven't touched on. We haven't spoken about the mining industry and how important this particular topic is. So, Sereme, let me begin with you. As the CEO of Methano Group, what do you think are the key challenges within the mining sector? I suppose we can talk South Africa, but I want to touch bigger. I want to go Africa because it's very important, and what processes need to be followed to actually resolve some of these issues.
Okay. Thanks, Leah. Mining in Africa, in terms of its market value, we're talking $476.86 billion US. So that's the kind of a value in terms of its market in Africa. And it's projected to about $799.6 billion in 2030. So by 2030, that is the kind of mining market size in Africa. In terms of trying to bring it home, what is that? So in terms of how do you relate to that kind of a number? Our GDP is sitting at about $419 billion US. So you can have an idea that this is a big market. So in terms of what it brings to everybody, I think Africa as a whole has got a potential to really create value for everybody who lives in Africa. And we believe that this is opportunity for creating employment for the people, improving the livelihood of everybody who live in our environment. Taking into cognizance of the fact that South Africa is finding itself in a crisis of unemployment, that is, for those people that are keen to go and create opportunity, I think this is a livelihood opportunity that they can jump into. The challenges, in terms of challenges, what is the outlook of mining in terms of challenges? South Africa, we are known to perfect delivering value in terms of exploration, the whole value chain of mining, exploration all the way to dispatching the actual product into the market. That we know. The business case of doing mining, we all know. It's been done, the world knows. But in terms of the challenges are not necessarily internal. It's not the technical know-how of how to actually do mining or produce mining products. It's more about the peripheral issues in the sense of the ESG. If you mine in a community, what are you doing to that community? Are you disposing low quality water to that community? These are issues that have got a very huge impact. If the local community of that particular community decide to feel like, this mine is not doing well, good to us, they can shut that mine. So therefore, it's essential for mine houses to take note of that as a challenge going forward. We need to relate with the people that are in those communities. We need to make sure we're part of the stakeholder so that we become a community. And I think this is good for business. In terms of the gender issue, we need to recruit women. It has been proven that women are really good in running mines. That's it from me.
Yeah, and well, they are. They're pretty good at everything. Agreed. Sorry, I just had to sneak that in.
Well done.
But it is important, and we do need to open this up. But I want to, Lemogang, I want to bring you into the conversation here. So if we look at the African mining market, I mean, let's throw some numbers around. It was valued at about $476.8 billion US dollars. More than that? Is that about right? And this was last year. And is projected to reach about 707, or let's say 800 billion US dollars by 2030. I mean, as someone who has held executive roles within the mining sector for years, you know, this is I suppose, a very big prediction. And what does this mean for the continent? Because we've got this, and yet do we manage it correctly? Because that's where my worry comes in.
Thanks, Leanne. I was looking for a much easier question, not the gender one.
Do you want to talk about women rather?
Yeah, but just to start with the elephant in the room, the climate things. Africa is generating greenhouse gas 3%, versus Asia is 53%. So if we have to start developing the mines, we are nowhere polluting. I mean, 97% of pollution doesn't come out of Africa. So it gives us a head start that nobody has. The problem with the continent is that we do not have the unity that the oil guys have. There's a thing called OPEC. The OPEC guys are so organized, nobody tells them what to do. Then there's a one in Africa, Africa producers of petroleum and oil. They tell you what to do. When you come to mining, we are the biggest in platinum. The two companies don't even have an association of platinum. We are the biggest in lithium. We don't have an association. Everything else is fragmented. The way to go is, and I think they are trying there's now AFTA, which is an agreement that can allow us to trade. It's easier today to fly into Africa. Before that, to go to DRC, you needed to go to Paris and then fly back to Kinshasa. So logistically speaking, Africa needs to develop infrastructure-wise, because we're sitting with all this glorious material, and God was very funny. He put them in no man's world. So we need, as a continent or sub-regions, to start developing the logical solutions. To get to DRC in the Bangui region, you have to go to Cameroon and use the river and then stream upwards with all your mining equipment. If anything happens, nobody wants to insure you in this continent. So as a team effort, I think the minerals that we have actually are undervalued because of the lack of infrastructure, the lack of insurances. If you have to fly to Eritrea now to go and drop mining equipment, no one wants to insure you, because Eritrea's got history. But that stops development of Eritrea's mineral deposit, which is unfair. But look, it's a rating system. People use a rating system and say danger or no danger. But in all fairness, while we're still sitting and thinking, the biggest African capital markets are not even investing in Africa. It's so sad that the biggest exploration money comes from Australia, Canada, China, and Russia. Now, people are talking about critical elements. You've got the biggest lithium deposits in the continent, 50% of which is owned by Chinese companies, 38% of which is owned by Russian companies. So by the time we start investing as Africans into this project, technically we'll not be owning them, and then we'll be the first one complaining that the minerals are being taken out of this country to wherever the host country. So for us to realize the value that you're talking about, financial institutions have to come to the party.
Yeah.
We have to start with, we have to find the mineral. We know they are there, but they have to be mined. And today, if you can think about it, Leanne, nothing that you are wearing was not mine. Anything that is in this room today, it was mine.
Yeah.
And everything that will be there in the next 50 years will be mine. Whether it's an iPhone and it's converted to, everything starts at the mining phase, right? So we shouldn't shoot down the idea of investing in our own self-interest because we don't want to put money where our mouth is. This thing is not worth billions, it's worth trillions if you convert it, if you start doing self-beneficiation, because then the technology stays in the continent and then your whole de-skilling becomes skilled employees at high technical values. Thanks.
And this is you touch on such important issues because, you'd think that within our continent, there is such massive wealth. And I mean, when you talk about the amount that is owned by China and Russia, and this should be something that benefits the people of the continent. I mean, I was watching, I'm sure you guys watched it with much interest, that whole Al Jazeera documentary that was focusing in on what was happening with the gold mafia. I don't want to talk about that, but I want to just in general talk about the fact that, it's benefiting the people of the continent. It's actually using it to the betterment and to try and sort out everything we've been speaking about for the last 2 days, where the mineral wealth in Africa, we should be the wealthiest continent, and yet something goes wrong in between. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
So there are good examples out there, and one of them that I'll mention is a company called, I'm not promoting it, Barrick Gold. Barrick went into the DRC, run by South Africans, and then they made it to the biggest copper mine that you can think about. Today, Barrick employees, 98% Congolese, speak both English and French, 60% youth, 40% female. So it's possible.
It is possible.
It is possible. It's the political willingness and the willingness from the community. But it's not impossible.
Yeah. And that's the reality. It's very, very possible. There are many possible things. I want to move to you, Farana, now. I mean, you're more than welcome to comment on anything we've said so far, but I know within your work, you focus on the bringing about opportunities for women in the business, and your work is also seen in bringing opportunities for playing fields for women as well as their children. What role does government policies and regulations play in promoting this diversity that you are hoping to achieve?
Well, Leanne, government has the potential to play a very important role in the mining industry. And at the end of the day, the mining industry is a compliancy industry in the sense that our regulations and our rules are real. A license to operate is real. If we don't comply, we lose the license. So, yes, mining definitely the government definitely can have an input because policy and regulation can drive our gender diversity and inclusion agenda. Look at BEE and the opportunities it opened for Black people, which I don't think would have happened had that legislation not come in place.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we have the Mining Charter, and Mining Charter 3, which is not yet finalized, but it stipulates that 5% of procurement should be given to women and youth. Now, yes, we're 51% of the population, but even that 5% is not implemented. And that's because it's not measured, it's not enforced. So it's not just about having policies and targets and regulations in place and signing pledges. It's about actually implementing these policies that has the ability to drive that change.
Mm-hmm. Well, what does it look like at the moment? I mean, if we have to look at the sort of female contingency within the mining industry, what are we looking like?
Interesting that you could ask that, because that is a very key focus in my career right now. I'm currently completing my PhD on empowering women in the business of mining in accordance with the 2030 Agenda.
Wow.
And there is not one article worldwide on those stats. I mean,
that's
is
crazy.
that even possible?
No, so, it isn't, because there's information on everything.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what you Google, you'll find something.
So there is nothing on the stats of women in mining business.
Wow.
To the extent that I could not conduct a literature research. That the way I had to go was actually interview key stakeholders, which I've been very fortunate to do. You know, I've managed to interview CEOs globally, heads of government, heads of the unions, to find ways of how we can do this. I'm now at the end of the PhD, and to date, there's still no article about it. So yes, if you want to know the landscape, you're not going to find it on the internet.
Well, hopefully we'll be a bit more educated once you've sort of put that out there.
So there's very minimal women in there, and those that do get there have a difficulty staying there. The challenges are real. I'm an entrepreneur in the industry for 23 years, and I have faced challenges. And I mean, I'm not afraid to be vocal. I'm not afraid to take the platform. But I've also been locked in a boardroom. I've also been threatened. I've been there. So it does exist. It's real, and women battle to stay.
Yeah. I mean, that sort of story that I shared up front, I mean, I think that is it's such a simple example of the difficulties of a woman trying to succeed in that industry. It is a tough industry. Having to drop your kid off, you're a single mom alone at home trying to make it in the mining industry and having those kind of challenges. And that's probably the least of her worries. There are many, many more.
Well, let me give you another example of something that, I mean, your basic attire as a woman underground, it's compulsory to wear a one-piece overall. So there's majority men there. When you go to a toilet, you've got to remove that entire one-piece.
Yeah.
So women don't use the toilets underground. They wait their 12-hour shift before they can go to surface. How ridiculous is that?
It's hard to hear this, isn't it, guys? I mean, I know you're sitting here and all of you are like, oh God, what did I sign up for here?
And let me
it's
tell
true.
There are alternatives, but the mines won't buy it.
They won't buy it.
Because they say what they have is working.
So, Clive, let's bring you in. I mean, you're hearing this. Talk.
I'll jump straight into this
Good,
point.
go for it.
So up until, I would say, 5-6 years ago, maybe a little longer, the story about the overalls was quite an interesting thing for me, because I was on the other side I was Chief Procurement Officer for Anglo American Platinum, and we had to make sure that we actually increased the number of women underground and increased diversity. And up until that stage, we were actually using a two-piece overall for people that were in the process industry, but the pants of the lady was still a zipper in the front.
Yeah.
So when you start to look at procurement and you look at exactly what you buy, are you buying stuff that is conducive to actually women in mining? And you have to think completely differently, because it's a male-dominated industry for years, but it has to change. It has to change. And so that's just one example of, we have to think completely differently about increasing women participation in mining.
And we know that it needs to change. So, I mean, Clive, you're a specialist on the subject of procurement and supply chain, transformation and measures that mining companies can put in place to ensure diversity and to ensure inclusion. These are some of the efforts that you're trying to do. So, what should be done? I mean, are the things that are in place now actually working? Are we seeing more inclusion? Are we seeing more black-owned mines? Are we seeing women coming in at a faster rate? Or is it sort of stagnating a bit now?
So I would say that mining has come a long way in comparative to other industries. The Mining Charter has a big drive towards pushing inclusion and diversity. And I think they've done good work, but it's now taking it to the next level. Yeah. And I think some of the companies that I get exposed to use this very much as a tick box exercise to make sure they have the BE scores and the BE levels to be increased. So it's outsourced the activity to someone to do the work, but really not passionate about actually changing the landscape of their communities and the area in which they work. So I think measuring is quite important. I think the department has got a big role to play, the DMRE, to make sure they go and monitor, check, follow up, and see see mining companies that are actually complying and not complying. And also having a situation where they're not complying, what are they doing to actually get them to comply? Yeah. Starting to look at penalties and driving the approach. So I think the industry has come a long way. Still got a long way to go. I think the diversity part, which is more specifically black woman-owned businesses in mining, still needs to have a C stretch up. There are just too few women-owned companies that are actually supplying into the mining industry. Yeah. Then the other part is youth-based businesses. If you look at most mining communities that we have a lot of young people who are very active. And one of the things that people say, well, Clive, technology is not a big thing in communities. It is a big thing because every single youngster has got a smartphone. And I don't think the mining industry is actually using technology effectively to pull young people into the mainstream of the economy. Yeah. And technology plays a big part. So making it easier for companies to tender, instead of going through a tender bulletin or going through an internet cafe, can the tender documents come straight onto the iPhone? And they can tender directly online. And one would say, yeah, you have to manage the risk. But for cleaning services, gardening services, what risk is that? That's not major. But if you're doing major mining contracting, obviously there's a different process that needs to be followed. So I think mining companies have to think a little more innovatively in how do you embrace a new way of working, how do you use technology much more effectively to actually create much more inclusion.
Yeah, and just on that point, I just want to look at communities, because the communities living around the mining areas, and I mean, we had the minister speaking yesterday and basically talking about how, with the transition, obviously, from trying to be more environmentally friendly and moving away from coal, there are many communities that are going to absolutely be impoverished by this. So what I want to ask you is the initiatives that are taking place at community level to educate them, to skill them up, to find inclusion and to do development in the communities, to perhaps move in the new way of thinking. Is there anything on the ground? Are there examples that you can give us of things that are happening there?
There's quite a few examples.
Good.
I mean, most mining companies now, when they go out for work, they make sure that they tender for work where you have community involvement. They want to see communities participating in these BE structures. So that gets done. I think the flip side of it is when you do have these BE structures in place, you want to see the dividend flow moving to communities, and we don't see much of that happening. Because you might be a shareholder on paper, but the dividend flow doesn't actually materialize into actually making a difference in community members. So I think there's a lot of work being done in that space. I think there's a lot of companies that are actually being empowered. I also do think that the community members and black entrepreneurs in that industry are tired of being developed, because every single company has got a development program. So they go from one development program to the next development program to the next, but no opportunities. And so young people are saying, listen, we just stop developing us. Just give us the opportunity, or develop us through the opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
And it's surprising. This is not the first time I get a clap on that. When I go to the mining in Durban, I get a sort of, everyone stands up and screams, because it's such a real thing. Young people are sick and tired of being developed. So you go on a program here, you go on a next program and the next program, you get all this knowledge, but cannot implement the knowledge.
There we go. Lemogang, you are desperate to comment.
And I wanted to give the doctor a state. Sort of 10 top mining companies, 3 are run by women. Natasha June, Dumisi Galala, Nombasa Tsengwa, and these are listed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but coming to the just energy transition story that you mentioned earlier, I don't think you'll relate to the story that I'm going to tell you, but there's an 8-year-old girl who's got a 10-year-old brother.
Yeah.
Every year in June, she goes to the river to get water. He goes to fetch the wood. He makes the fire, the water gets home, they wash, they go to school. Go and tell that community about just energy transition. I mean, this is where we say, as Africans,
Yeah.
can we start telling you that we don't have electricity, we never grew about electricity. One house in California can light up 10 houses in Soweto. That's unfair comparison, but the truth of the matter is, you're not going to take somebody from Ekunjalo, whatever Vlakfontein it is, and tell them from tomorrow you're not getting electricity from coal because we in Europe, we think it's a bad thing.
Exactly.
So as we talk about this just energy, climate change, can we be cognizant where people come from? Because it's very easy when you're in New York and you're punching up your laptop and, but structurally, it should be fair.
Yeah. You've touched on a big issue here. Structurally, it should be fair, but you want to comment on this as well, Frana?
I just wanted to comment on those stats.
Oh,
That is
okay.
very true, and there's many stats developed on the workforce, the labor workforce, but on the actual women in business being given opportunities in mining, as contractors. There's no stats.
No stats
at
on
all.
that. That little tinkle was the thing that says we run out of time. But go quickly.
But I can explain.
And then you got to talk. I want to end it with you.
I can explain that because now I registered a company in my wife's name because the law wants the women,
Yes.
but she can't run the business. So what we get into the mining company is that we've got a black-owned mining company and we never see the face.
Yes.
And then, we know it's a company for compliance, but let's start giving the people who've got the technical will and the will to do it. And I agree with Clive. Youth doesn't want you to overregulate. We are overregulated in this country.
Yes.
You must be over 18. I mean, women started working in the mining industry post-1994.
Yes.
You guys were not supposed to be there. So it's a hell of a transition, Just say.
We can tell we weren't meant to be there. Sereme?
I think what I can say is, in terms of the whole issue of digital transformation in mining, I think really there is a huge opportunity. Our youth currently, it's highly qualified. Like in the past, they've got all the right qualification from our good universities locally. When they get into the mining, big mine houses, there is really pocket of progress in terms of bringing technology into operation. I mean, we are servicing mines at Methano Group. What we do, we have the youth, that recent graduate. We don't necessarily focus our recruitment from a specific region. We go into those remote areas where the mining are operating. We recruit those young graduates and we bring them over to our corporate office. And then at the same time, we recruit experienced, seasoned technical professionals, and we team them up with the young professionals, and we call it diversity. And we believe with that, we go as far as recruiting the rich diversity that South Africa possesses. I mean, if you think about it, if we can all just start diversifying our industry, I believe there's really pocket of opportunity for growth. We saw exponential growth as a business, as coming as a simple SME company, and today we are a corporate company. We've had a growth rate, exponential growth rate, and we believe we want to call for action to say, South Africans, let's diversify our industries. Let's make sure our business, we recruit everybody. Doesn't matter where you come from. Earlier, the minister in the week, she mentioned that transformation is not about pulling out a white guy and pulling a black guy in. Let's bring everybody. South Africa is blessed with rich diversity. Let's recruit everybody that lives in this country and really go for a change. If you think about it, the potholes that we faced with nowadays, If we can go out to all those senior guys that are now almost in pension and bring them in and let them work with this, doesn't matter whether they are white, or black, or color, it doesn't matter. Bring them in, push, we will get better resource, we will get better infrastructure, and this country will stand up to its best, and everybody will benefit, and it will be a better country.
Ah, there we go. I don't want to leave it here, but I have to. I've got to leave it. This has been so fascinating. I didn't think it would be as fascinating as it was, but it really was. Please, let's give our panelists a round of applause. Such a pleasure having all of you here on stage with us. So we can depart. So thank you again. Sereme, who is from Methano Group, is the CEO there. Lemogang is the CEO of African Exploration Mining and Finance Corporation. Farana is the CEO of Avita Mining Innovations. And Clive Govender is the CEO of Black Umbrellas CGC Consulting. Man, I needed more time on that one. I really did. Okay, so next panel.
Methano Group is a multidisciplinary EPCM consultant company which serve a number of markets. We serve mining, we serve renewable energy, we serve water, infrastructure and industries. Our differentiator is basically diversity. What we do is we believe that South Africa is a place with rich diversity. Out of it, we go and recruit people ranging from different backgrounds in terms of age. And what we do, we assemble them together to form a team that actually come out to put solutions that are innovative.
Oh, for a second there, I thought you were just clapping for me, and then I realized that no, Vazi. But anyway, I don't actually have a panel. It's more of a discussion because it's literally just myself and the CEO of BP, and we're going to be talking about the new era of energy. So I hope that goes accordingly. She's sitting right there in front of me. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome on stage Taelo. Am I saying right? Taelo Mojapelo, who's the CEO of BP South Africa.
Hi, where you
Now I've got the luxury of saying pick a seat. You want that one?
Nah.
This one's fine.
Yes.
All right, cool. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. How are you?
Pardon?
How are you? I'm so excited to have this conversation.
I'm excited and I'm green today. BP and Nedbank.
Yeah.
I think I just want to compliment Nedbank for a wonderful 2 days. And I hope all of you have got greenbacks, yeah? Yes. Good.
Look,
So you're going to fill up at BP.
I've got green sneakers, so I don't know if it... Do I also get into that?
Nah, get a Nedbank card.
Nah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
no, put me on. So let me just start off by, do you maybe want to just take us through your own experiences in terms of renewable energy and renewable fuels? You've been in the industry for some time now, and I'd love to just get a background story of what you have seen in the position also that you're in as CEO.
Yeah. I must say, I joined this industry in 2020. So I've been in the energy industry for 3 years. But prior to that, I spent it mostly in the FMCG industry. And FMCG industry are huge consumers of energy, both in terms of transportation as well as production. And the first time we probably experienced that was, if you recall, in 2010, when we had, I can't remember, I think it was 2009 or 2010, when we had the first power crisis and we thought it's going to go over. And we were very, very unprepared. But fast forward to today, it still is a challenge, but probably a lot more prepared. But getting into this industry, and I think I was fortunate to get in at a time of crisis. So if you recall, we had the COVID crisis, crude oil really crashed to an all-time low, cost inflation started to rise, and you also started to see pockets of conflict coming up. And that really forces people to think a little differently. And, we talk about climate change and so forth, and, people have a knee-jerk response to it and think we all have to go into renewables. But what I've learned over time is you cannot just transition into renewables. It has to be affordable, it has to be secure to ensure that you've got it continuously, and you also need to respond to the carbon emissions, so it's got to be local.
These. No, it's coming back. So the good thing there is that the energy was coming back instead of
It's coming back, yeah.
going.
So, and it's got to be also low carbon. But to do that, and I started with affordability, because what we realize, both in the transport sector as well as the energy, and by the way, if you think about the biggest carbon emitters, I had the mining industry speak earlier on, you think about the biggest carbon emitters, from a South Africa baseline of carbon emissions of about 500 metric tons, you've got about 216 of that is from power generation. And then you have petchems next, which is petrochemicals and chemical companies. And then you've got the transport sector, which is just about 55 metric tons. And that is the third biggest emitter. Mining is incidentally not a big emitter. And why is it not a big emitter? Because we export a lot of it. And it would be great if we could beneficiate in the country, create new industries, and re-industrialize this country. Because unless we do that, we're going to keep people in poverty, and it's going to be very, very hard to go on this transition because energy will not be affordable. I think there is a recognition that we have to transition.
No, it's back on.
Okay. There's a recognition that we've got to transition in the transport sector. But that's a very hard to transition.
How do you do that?
Sector.
Where do you even begin?
And I think, we talk about EVs a lot, but our view is you've got a journey to go, such as Africa. In South Africa, as much as we are big exporters of vehicles and will probably transition into exporting EVs, dependent on the policy framework, what remains true is that not everybody can afford a new car. So what we have to think about and force ourselves to think about is how do we introduce lower carbon emissions? And this speaks to fuels such as biofuels. We're a big proponent of biofuels, and if you think about South Africa as an industry, it gives us an opportunity to generate new industries, such as biofuels from waste, and trust me, South Africa has got a lot of unmanaged waste. Biofuels from agriculture. It pains all of us to see, what's happening in KZN with the sugar industry. There is room for us to all work together, financing, government policy, private sector, creating new industries where ownership actually sits with empowered people. And it is possible to do that. If I think about currently in our industry as we have it today, which is still liquid fuels, people sometimes get very nervous about BP because we take some very conscious decisions. We took a conscious decision that, look, we have to actually start introducing broader participation in the economy. And we're focusing primarily on women and youth. And we concluded a transaction early last year, so back end of 2021 into early last year, with a company called WASA. Okay. Great group of ladies, black-owned ladies, who are not just equity partners, who own the company, who run it, who employ people, who make decisions. And as companies, we have the responsibility to do the due diligence to ensure that when we talk empowerment, it's empowerment of the organization itself and not just empowerment on paper. And we've signed a 10-year agreement with them as in to continue to throughput to ensure that they actually break even and get into profit. So it can be done. You don't have to own the whole value chain. And I think I just want to call on private sector to think a little differently about how we can empower entrepreneurs. And we've got great entrepreneurs in this country. Yeah,
I was about to ask, in terms of the rural community, what solutions do you see coming forward for them?
Yeah. When you think about renewables, at the moment, we talk about, trying to get Eskom to get into renewables. I actually think that's probably a little unjust, because what happens is you then keep the energy system centralized. I think there's an opportunity now to create new industries by actually getting energy, so cleaner energy, for example, if we now start taking solar panel technology, solar panel farms, getting them into communities where they can actually own it, and we can upskill them to actually know how to work with that technology and contribute to the grid. So a decentralized system, in our view, is much more beneficial than what we have today, which is a monopoly that we are all reliant on, and access becomes an issue because you also don't get it for free. It costs money. Hence, you get the person that has to collect firewood because they actually don't have access to it. So if we want to bring people along and communities along, as we go on this transition, and it must be a just transition, we cannot leave the communities behind. So I think there's an opportunity as we work with all stakeholders to make sure that we bring the energy where it should be, but also, and I don't like to call it job opportunities, it's the meaningful jobs, which is different from job opportunities, to ensure that people can actually start aspiring to have a future. If you think about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I mean, we've got a big part of our society still sitting at the lower level of realization. How can we move them all up such that you broaden the middle class and you grow the economy? Yeah.
So how do you then rope in the partners that you talk about in terms of your stakeholders? Because now business this side is talking renewable energy, and this side we're also talking about the realities of what South Africa, or rather South Africans, are facing, of having to fetch firewood here, and the one fetches water that side and comes together. How do you communicate that and make it a real thing?
Yeah, I think the challenge is we're trying to leapfrog, and nobody else has had to leapfrog. If you think about developed markets, they've gone through the whole journey of industrialization, and the transition into renewables is a transition. If we try and leapfrog, we're not going to go on a transition, and it's going to cost us. We're going to get into debates about who should pay for this and that, given that Africa is not the biggest emitter, but we probably face the brunt of those emissions. So, the ideal approach around this is to bring all stakeholders, government, and the private sector stakeholders, societies, communities, and get us together to a point where we recognize that it is going to be a slow path. But as we make these changes, we make these changes by changing the ownership patterns and making sure that the people that own it are not the ones that are easy to finance, because it's always easy to finance those that actually have big balance sheets, and I'm talking about personal balance sheets. You've got a trust fund, so that sits in the balance sheet, But really thinking about doing it differently, recognizing that there are communities that may not have a strong balance sheet, but there is a possibility and a future that exists, and a profitable future as well. So how do we get all these institutions? I listened to IDC earlier on speaking about how they fund. But, should we be thinking a little differently around how we manage risk and what we define as risk? Because if we define as risk the way we do today, we'll potentially continue to have, black ownership on paper just to get something over the line, and you don't actually change the ownership patterns, and then you still remain with people who have to fetch firewood, people who still have to live in shacks, don't have access to clean water, and those challenges remain.
From an infrastructure perspective, do you think that South Africa is ready to start implementing those type of ideas?
I think it's ready if we have the will. South Africa is a very rich country, and I think I've had several speak about how South Africa is rich in resources, but I think we have the ability and opportunity to be the biggest economy in Africa. So I don't think it's a question of, are we ready from a financing perspective? I think we need to ask ourselves, are we ready to accept this from a policy perspective, but also accepting that we have to change how we view ownership patterns. Until we are ready to accept that, it will always remain a challenge for us. So, you think about how you bring in new industries. I just gave you the example of WASA. You've got to let go so that you participate. You have broader participation along a particular value chain. You could have a black-owned company today that's very small, but has the ability to grow in solar panel manufacturing equipment such that you don't have to import it, or battery technology such that you don't have to import it. But they may not have the access to financing. How do we make sure that we finance them, and the component producers as well? You need to also check those ownership patterns and make sure that you've got value that is quite transformed across the value chain. So I think it is possible for us to do it.
Yeah.
And we are ready.
Okay.
Yeah. However, don't expect, I must add this, don't expect that as we go on this journey, we start to deindustrialize. We have to re-industrialize, and I call it re-industrialization because you're bringing in new industries, yet at the same time, for example, in mining, you're going to need to ramp up mining because you need mining for a lot of these components for renewables. So I would expect to see mining ramp up, and we need to support it significantly.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you think about, we talk about coal and how dirty coal is, the reality is, as you go on this transition, you are going to need the coal-powered energy sources, so your power stations and so forth, as you build the renewables. You can't just cut it today and remain with a crisis. You know.
Okay, thank you so much for that. That was quite insightful. I don't know if you have anything in closing that you'd also want to mention before we close off.
Not really, but I think just to say, as you wrap up, and I know I'm quite at the wrap-up of the conference, as we wrap up the conference, you know, I'd like to encourage particularly entrepreneurs to, you know, challenge themselves in terms of how they approach like private sector or financing institutions to participate in a lot of these industries, and particularly in renewables, because everyone is learning. I know, you know, you go to institutions and you'll think that they're the best in the technology, but technology evolves over time. So how do you actually demonstrate your desire and passion to want to win in that industry? And companies will partner with you. They'll help you grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. CEO of BP South Africa, ladies and gentlemen, Dialo Mojapule. Thank you.
Cheers. Or do I hug you?
Yes, of course. I'd love a hug. There you go. In fact, let me walk you. There we go. All right. Should I open the chair for you as well? Oh, it still exists, my good sir. It still exists. All right. Where are we now? All right. I'm going to call up the next moderator. And I think I see you already. Not you. No. All right. But is it that side? It's not that side. It is that side. Yes, it is that side, nonetheless. Ladies and gents, we are almost done with our conference. It's been an incredible 2 days of getting to know a lot about different industries and strategies and what big business has planned out for stakeholders, young people especially, job opportunities and so forth. So the next moderator, Ronaldo Schwab, who is an award-winning journalist, filmmaker and mixed media specialist, will come up on stage and introduce his panel and let us know what they'll be discussing. And yeah, just give him a round of applause, please, ladies and gents.
Stunning. Thank you so much. It is Ronaldo. I don't play soccer, and this conversation is absolutely not going to be about soccer. I also, unfortunately, don't work for Nedbank, even though I'm wearing their corporate colors, I've been told this morning. I'm Ronaldo Schwab, and it's quite exciting for me to moderate the final panel discussion for day 2 of this conference. We had a running joke at the back that they kept the gays and the gals in the conversation we're about to have for the end of the conference. So hopefully it's as entertaining and insightful as the conversation and the topics that we'll be dissecting will, of course, wrap up this day. So like our MC said, I'm Ronaldo Schwab. I wear a few professional hats. I think the best way to describe me is a visual storyteller, and a representative and authentic storyteller at that. So it's important for me to have conversations like these in rooms like these, because hopefully it is spaces where decision makers can tangibly implement strategies and policies to include people and to create safe spaces, that of course being the premise of the final discussion today. Before I call up my panel, I'd like to just preface our discussion by putting a quote out there, and it's by anti-apartheid LGBTI activist Simon Nkoli. This was back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I think it pinpoints the idea of intersectionality quite perfectly. And if we are talking about empowerment and representation and inclusion, I think it's important that we start that conversation there. The quote reads something along the lines of, "I am black and I am gay. In South Africa, I'm oppressed because I'm a black man. I'm oppressed because I'm a gay man. So when I fight for my freedom, I must fight against both oppressions. One does not become before the other." On that note, I'd like to welcome my very esteemed panel. First up, I'd like to call up Caroline Nelson. She's the country manager for H&M South Africa. A warm round of applause for her. Also calling up Zakhele Ngobozi, founder and managing director of Modern Centric Holdings. Next up is Craig Barnes. He's the chairperson for the LGBTQIA+ forum at Nedbank. And then last but definitely not least, Sikhmolile Nklobu, Senior Advisor for Gender Equality, Sustainable Development at the Commission for Gender Equality of South Africa. A warm round of applause. So I'll jump straight into the conversation. Like I said,
the darkness in the world can't extinguish the light of a single candle. But light does more than just illuminate. Light breaks into a spectrum. It splashes color on the canvas of individuality, brings variety to the fabric of society. What is the color of your soul? Maybe you're red, like the dunes of the Kalahari, the life force wherever you may set foot. Orange, like the African sun disappearing behind Table Mountain, the healer of weary minds. Or yellow, like a field of Free State sunflowers, the encourager, the cheerleader in the crowd. Perhaps you're green, like the rolling hills of the Midlands, the driver of growth in those around you. Blue, like the coastal waters that surrounds us, the soother that brings calm after the storm. Or purple, like the jacarandas that line our streets, the spirit that ignites a sense of pride. Whatever the color of your soul, we encourage you to shine. Because while we may shine differently, we're all part of the same rainbow. Happy Pride, South Africa.
when I see corporate pride campaigns, it always leaves me with a smile, so well done on that. Of course, we celebrate Pride Month in South Africa in the month of October. Internationally, it's commemorated in the month of June, so we're just off the back of International Pride Month. But the conversation we're having today is all about policies and practices and tangibly setting those up to create inclusive spaces for LGBTQI+ people in the work environment and beyond, and of course, tangibly measuring that so that it actually is effective. I'll jump straight into the questions, and I'll pose this one to Zakhele. Let's quickly talk about the challenges when one is looking to incorporate and implement policies and campaigns, I guess, in your business. And I think it's important that we start by addressing education when you're talking about LGBTI issues. So how does one do that?
Sure, Ronaldo? Oh, okay, cool. You really asked me that question because I think I'm going to finish tomorrow, but I'll try to make sure that I finish today.
You have your rainbow book ready.
So for me, the first question I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask the panelists, that everybody in this room, when we're speaking of transformation, are we really speaking of true transformation, or are we just speaking of ticking the box? And why I'm saying that, in my years of consulting, working in the space of transformation and make sure that, nobody's left behind and unothering the othered. And this is what I've picked up in corporate, especially when it comes to forums, the LGBTQIP+ forums, the PWD forums, all these forums that are there. My question is there representation from those communities? Because one thing that worries me sometimes is that, yes, we are transforming, we are speaking of transformation, but who's going to represent me? How can you have an LGBTQIP+ forum when there's no representation from my community? How do you know about my lived experiences? And to top it all, let's speak about the top to bottom approach. Please excuse my pun. Please, please excuse my pun. But you look at different organizations out there, and you look at the people that are driving transformation. Decisions are made at the bottom, but the question is that is it being driven from the top? I don't think it's being driven from the top. We've got a lot of issues, in corporate, especially when you look at generation wars. We're still dealing with veterans who are actually exiting corporate. We're dealing with baby boomers, who are also exiting corporate. We've got Gen X, we've got Gen Y, and then we've got the Gen Z, the expressive one, the WIMP generation. What's in it for me? Accept me as I am. So my question is that, are all these generations understanding this change? And this is where things go wrong. I really feel like, if we're saying we are driving transformation, one of the speakers yesterday said, I think it was Mark from Black Umbrellas, he said, if we want to drive transformation, let's start from the top. And for me, leadership is it's actually purposeful leadership.
Yeah.
Why am I in this role? I'm here to transform. And transformation starts within you first before you are able to drive transformation. So these are the things that goes wrong in corporate.
So I think the first step would be to make sure that the people in the room, when those policies are being created, are diverse and representative of all the colors and identities within the acronym and under the umbrella.
Of course. And another thing, Ronaldo, is that I'm going to mention just one example. You look at transformation, especially within this community in corporate, and you find a masculine presenting gay man and a feminine presenting gay man. And a masculine presenting gay man is more likely to get a role than a feminine presenting gay man. Why? Is that still transformation? No. There's a lot that needs to be done in this space.
On that note, I'd like to circle back to that quote that I started with, speaking about intersectionality. I think when we are talking about queer issues or LGBTQI+A issues, intersectionality should be the foundation of that. We are black, we are women, we are queer, whatever that combination looks like. I'm going to throw this question to you. How can intersectionality actually be integrated into policies to make sure that all those identities that people live through and are represented when they do enter the workspace?
Thanks for that question, because for me it starts with the commitment to going beyond compliance. Because where I work, we see people's policies that are mainly saying, I don't want to be in trouble. So how do I stay out of trouble? And if you are wanting to frame a policy around staying out of trouble, you are actually not going to be inclusive, you are not going to embrace diversity, you are just going to make sure that you don't end in jail. And so for me, the starting point must be beyond compliance. Exactly. So when you then say beyond compliance, what does that then mean? It says you then enable an environment where each and every person who doesn't sound and look like the other one that is already here gets around the table.
Yeah.
Because even if we look the same, but we don't sound the same, And sometimes we don't even experience the same things. So for me, intersectionality is about acknowledging that we can be in the middle, but what is around? So if you put your finger like this, the individual is here. What are these all other things that talk about this person? Are you then going to make a policy that takes into consideration all those intersecting things about this particular person and these other people that they have to be included with and belonging to? Because we also like to do policies to attract, which is equity, and then count all the colors in, that's diversity apparently. And then we say, oh yeah, you're now in one room. Be inclusive, sit next to each other, be nice to each other, greet each other, let's go to Kumbaya and light the fires. But for me, the end game is belonging. Once that policy is being drafted, do you only listen to the loud voices or you listen to everyone? And that is where it becomes inclusive, because we are then approaching the policy from a belonging perspective. So when I enter a company, I see myself. When I look at what the company produces, I see myself. When the language in the company is used, I hear and see myself. So it's all those things. So you could have these policies, but you find that they're not speaking about it. So beyond compliance for me is very important. And then also linking it to belonging. Because we can't do diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then, we need to belong somewhere.
Yeah.
And for belonging, you then start asking the critical question, what do I need to do for you, this one, for that one, and that one to belong? We don't have to sing Kumbaya, but we need to belong.
Exactly.
Yeah, so for me, that's what is important.
And I think it also speaks to creating a space for people to show up authentically, a safe space for people to show up authentically. You touch on the fact that it's everyone sitting around a table. Stakeholders and the other side of this conversation also needs to come to the party. Let's quickly talk about what stakeholders can do. And Caroline, I'll throw this question to you. When policies are being set out or being given out as a directive, what is the best way to do? Because essentially, and I'll be totally honest, and I live my life quite authentically and quite colourfully so in my workspace, but come Pride Month, while I enjoy the rainbows, it becomes quite exhausting for me as a brown gay man to always educate and speak to people about what it's like and blah, blah, blah. Absolutely necessary for this conversation today, but sometimes it's just allowing people to show up authentically, but that space needs to be created by the stakeholders. How does one do that?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different ways to do it, and I think, I think what's interesting working in the fashion world, and I think it's important to preface that the fashion world has kind of historically been a very welcoming place for the LGBTQ+ community, and people will naturally feel welcome there before going for many other careers. So we have a small advantage, but we need to be leaders as well, because people don't really come and say, hey, how have you created this culture within your organization? You just see a lot of campaigns that are a little bit more reactionary or transactional or compliant. So within an organization that the culture is kind of built on inclusivity anyway, it's easier to get our stakeholders around the table together because people genuinely can feel like they can be themselves, which is a really nice place to be in, but we're also very aware that that's not where most companies are at this point, especially in South Africa, despite some of the legislation here being here a lot longer than in other countries when it comes to rights within the country. So for us, we use a lot of colleague engagement, and it links to the conversations we've just had, and it came up yesterday as well, where yes, we have forums, but the forums have to become cross-sectional, and the conversation needs to happen around forums. And a really simple example, so we have a cultural awareness forum, we have a women's empowerment forum, we have an LGBTQ+ forum, an ally forum. And what's really interesting, as we were planning for women's empowerment, as it's coming up, and we want to make sure internally and externally we're doing something around that, the LGBT community was able to come and say, hey, but if we're going to do something women's empowerment, then we must include someone who's trans female, for example. Now, would the female empowerment group have identified that on their own? Not necessarily. So having the different colleague groups together, have these type of discussions, and then be a constant discussion too, is where you start to see the stakeholders come together and realize we're all trying to fight for something, but we can all fight for each other when the conversation is open and consistent and constant. So it is about that conversation being on a daily basis. It can't be this thing, to your point, it can't be just in June or just in October that this is what we're talking about. It has to be something that's consistently talked about, daily, weekly, because that opens up the conversation and allows for people to feel comfortable to raise things. When it becomes just an event, the conversation closes after the event. So you have to keep the stakeholders engaged the whole time in order to ensure that you're constantly engaging everyone, but also making sure everyone feels welcome and can move forward, because also things are changing so quickly. You have to stay educated as an employer in order to be able to make sure everyone feels like they can be part of your organization.
Speaking of someone who has to keep their finger on the pulse, I'll just read your title again, Craig. Chairperson LGBTQIA+ Forum at Nedbank. What exactly is it that you do or have to do in your organization? And perhaps you can look back at some of the success stories coming out of the work that you actually do.
Look, there's a number of things that we do as a forum. Firstly, it is to provide education, first and foremost. I mean, people cannot understand us as a community if we don't share. This is what we are about, and this is why we should be this is why we should have a seat at the table. Some stunning, successful campaigns that we have run are obviously the 135 Rivonia Road Light Up. Mind you, we were the first corporate, I hope, in SA, if not the world, to light up their headquarters office. This is just opposite the road here. And that was in support of Pride Month. SA Pride at the time. But something that we backed it up with also, we must be very careful of this thing called pinkwashing. And that is where we see these logos being changed on LinkedIn on the 1st of June each and every year, and the evening of the 30th it gets taken down. So be very careful of pinkwashing. We will literally WhatsApp each other and send these posts and just look at this brand, you know, pulling this marketing stunt. Always, why is it always where, when we want to show inclusion and inclusivity, there's always a flamboyant person of color trying to represent the community? There's so much more depth to it, and that is a stunt. We need to be very careful of that. Anyway, in addition to the light up, we donated 100,000 to the other foundation, a huge business partner for the forum, as well as Nedbank. For those of you who do not know, the other foundation is an African trust working on human rights, and more so with a focus on the LGBTQI+ community. In addition, while we were doing all of this, we also had a social media campaign, #ColorOfMySoul. So what we thought here we should do is each day in the lead up to Joburg Pride, I think, we broke down these colors. So are you yellow? Are you the soother amongst your friends? Are you red? The lover amongst your people? And each day we broke these down. You know, the amount of attention this got, because it was more of like a human thing. It wasn't now about the LGBTQI+ community. And that video that we showed as we started there was that bringing all of those colors together. This was such a meaningful campaign. So much success that has gone into it, and people held on to it. Another thing that we weren't really actively involved in, but Nedbank included, if I'm not mistaken, for the first time across corporates, a trans model in their advert for I Don't Live for Money campaign. If I'm not mistaken, they might have won a couple of awards behind that campaign. And then something that is very close to my heart is the support of our LGBTQI+ shelter. Now this is where we literally go out there and we sit with these people that have, they seek refuge from some of our neighbors. you know? And this is where it's like, why is that even there? Why is that even a thing? You know, where we should have a home like this, where people, firstly, A, do not feel comfortable around their families, or their families has kicked them out within their society, their communities, and then in some of their countries, where they come to this shelter and we are there on the front line showing support. And that is activism. That is what we call being an ally. So much success that I can go through, but it's not always about that. It's about the impact.
I think it definitely deserves a round of applause. And it speaks to something that I often speak about when we do have these conversations around LGBTI people. It's great to have conversations and to have the campaigns, but what does that tangibly mean? You touched on pink washing and people changing their logos in the month of June and the month of October. Some corporates and companies get it right, others get it totally wrong, even if the intention was to get it right. Let's talk about tangibly what is needed and what worked. And I'll throw this question to the whole panel. Policy-wise, implementation and tangibly seeing the effect of a policy, what works or what worked? If you can share some examples, I'll start with you.
Okay, so from what works really is the first approach, of course, is basing it on intersectionality. But when you then drill down to a policy, for example, I'll make an example of what is called a parenting policy.
Yes.
So you see there, you include everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone has potential to be a parent. And then when you then do the provisions inside, you do them in a way that says, so what type of parenting could happen beyond what is known as traditional parenting? And you list all those parenthoods. And then you then make provisions in the policy. And when you make those provisions, we are not making them to penalize, but you are making them to enable.
Yeah.
So you list them, fund them, and don't ridicule people who apply for particular portions of the leave. Because there's also this thing. Yeah. How does HR know that I'm actually adopting? How? Such a personal thing. How did it get to the corridor? Because someone is like, how can they not have their own baby? Yeah. Why shouldn't they? Sure. So these are the things. And then why this gay couple wants to have a child? Why this lesbian couple wants to have the child? Do they want to make this child a lesbian or a gay? Yes. These are the corridor talks. So if you are HR in your company, it's not about drafting. It's also about educating. And also putting measures in place, because the moment I go outside and start talking about a gay person or a lesbian person, that is an element of hate speech.
Exactly.
And I should have something in the organization to deal directly with the hater. Because if I deal with this one, I tell everyone else that no one goes around and say you are heterosexual. No one. Have you ever had anyone walking in a corridor and they are told, that one is heterosexual?
No.
But be gay, whoa, everyone knows. Be lesbian, everyone knows. Worse if you become transgender or trans woman or trans man. Remember, this one used to be Peter. Yes. And you know now, they are Patricia.
Yeah.
So for me, these are the things that are not about just policy. We really like to hide and say things must happen because there's policy. Other things are not about policy, because policy is there to ensure that you manage a process, you manage an environment, but it is the how.
Yes.
So you cannot pride yourself. Like when we get companies come to the CGE for transformation hearings and they give us piles of policies, we're like, okay, so have they worked? And they're like, we've reviewed them. Like, have they worked?
Yeah.
How have they worked?
Yeah.
So that is another thing, that you do your policy. When you review your policy, you are not reviewing because it has expired, but you are reviewing because it's not working for your environment. It's not because it has expired, because it's not working for your environment, and you want to make sure that this policy works for the environment. That is why we review policies, not because they've expired. So for me, it's really around, it's not a tick box exercise, people. Yeah. We leave our homes at 8 and come back at 6. How can I be uncomfortable for 8 to 9 hours?
Yeah.
Hide who I am.
Yes.
Sometimes there are loose that have the sign of me and then don't have a sign of the other.
Exactly.
So where is the other going to go if they only have a sign of me? Small things like that. And you get to know that employees will say, oh, I don't go in the toilet when Patricia is there because I'm not sure what Patricia will do. You know, so these are the things that we need to really say: policy, practice, review. Policy, practice, review, reframe, restructure. Do all these things until you get to a point where policy is not about, did you read 3.4, but it's about the life, the organizational culture
The experience,
of the
yeah.
organization.
The belonging.
And the belonging. And we end up not having to have this forum and that forum and that forum, because one day we'll actually know that we are actually a forum altogether. Exactly. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I guess I'll flip this question a bit further to the rest of the panel. It speaks to taking policy and turning it into an inclusive corporate culture.
Yes.
And that is what the lived experience is. And I'll also say that this conversation would have looked totally different 5 years ago, and it will look different 2 years from now. How do companies stay abreast with this ever-changing acronym and experiences that people identify as?
Yeah. It does change a lot, and you know, it's very interesting for me. Before I came here, so I've been here about 3 years now. I was based in the US, and about 6 years ago now, I was responsible for talent. So I was HR in the US at the time. And when I think of the conversations then versus the conversations now, it's your approach to your teams is completely different. At the time, it was very relevant, but you do have to be evolving, just like every other element of business, life, etc. You know, the conversation has to change with the times. And I think that's the most important thing, that your teams and as leaders especially, we are standing up and saying, things are changing and we have to change with it. And it's okay if we don't know everything, but let's educate ourselves. And I think then the education that comes with that, which I think is the consistent theme now in this conversation, there's my Irish accent, no TH. The consistent theme in this is that the education that you have amongst your teams is the thing that's going to help you to constantly evolve. So we have a lot of different trainings that kind of cover all levels of inclusion. We have a layers training that, you know, kind of shows everyone that, you know, the thing that you see here, so like the iceberg analogy, I guess, for lack of a better word, isn't actually what's happening underneath for most people. I mean, I can guarantee everyone looks at me and says, this is this person, but actually there's so much different story underneath. And trainings like that, what they do is they open the minds of people to not just this community in particular, but to look at all people, that there's more beneath the surface. And when you start with a training like that, then you have a more open-minded team. And then you can start to layer in trainings, like we have a Beyond the Binaries training, which is extremely relevant right now, that is, you know, consistently updated, because it needs to be based on the world that's happening around us. And then we have lots of other small trainings along the way that make the conversation feel really natural, so that we can get to the point that she just mentioned about it becoming just, everybody just feels comfortable. Little small changes in our stores, you know, our fitting rooms are gender neutral, whereas historically, you know, it was men's fitting room, women's fitting room. Now, granted, they may be placed in different parts of the store, but there's nobody who's going to stop you from going into a fitting room. You know, it's little tiny things like that that make a huge difference to the community, to make people feel welcome. And we have to constantly evolve in the things that we're doing in order to make sure we're adapting to the changes that are needed in those areas. So I could go a long way, but I have a feeling you're also doing lots of great things too, so I'll pass it along.
Yeah,
jump
you can
on
hop
that.
in. Yes.
Maybe in addition to corporates staying relevant and staying abreast would be see what other corporates are up to. Back to the co-opetition again. It's not always about how I can outshine and things like that. Do you know that I attended a conference 2 weeks ago? It's called Pride at Work, and this is where the likes of Vodacom, Nedbank, Diageo was there as well, big corporates, Norton Rose was there as well. The only people that were at this this event, this conference, were queer people. So where are our HR leaders? Where are our transformational executives when we are saying, oh, we're inclusive, everybody's equal, we listen to you, but then when it comes to the actual events and discussions, oh, I'm double booked. You know, things like that. When will it become a priority? Things like that. I think that is a brilliant thing for corporates to be aware about.
Zakela, I think I'll throw this question to you, and we're almost done with our panel discussion. When we are talking about this topic, we rightfully so tend to highlight the obstacles and the struggles that we go through. Being LGBTQI+ is an absolute joy. It is fun. We live full lives.
Yes.
We have to talk about queer joy. What makes you show up fully and gives you joy as a gay black man in the workspace?
The first thing for me, Ronaldo, is it's a human right. The constitution of this country speaks about human right. And before I'm human, I'm a gender. There's different genders in the workplace. Why does it have to be different? As Sikolile said, that you know what, I don't have to come out if I'm straight. Why do I have to come out if I'm gay? So for me, happiness in the workplace is basically belonging.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak of what I have done in my corporate to basically create a space of belonging. When I started Modern Centric 5 years ago in a back room, because you know what, I wanted to fight for the right, and I'm happy to sit here in this forum and actually fight for what I believe in. So when I thank you. So when I speak of the work that I've done, I created a hashtag unothering the othered. But I said to myself, no, it just doesn't end there. What will drive me to make sure that I follow this campaign? I then created another hashtag called #ModernCentric 1 million. What does that mean? It basically says, in my lifetime of driving transformation in this country, I want to impact over 1 million people. And so far, I'm proud to say that I have actually impacted over 5,000 people in South Africa through the work that we've been doing. What we've been doing, I'm just going to mention a few things, especially in the LGBTQIP+ space. We are running conferences. Every year, there's a conference that we run called I Am Me Conference. What is I Am Me? See me, accept me for who I am. Don't look at my disability if I'm disabled and then see me, but see me first, then you can see the rest later. And this is where we actually speak to corporate and we actually make them uncomfortable. We ask questions about policy. Has it been implemented? Has it been executed? How is it going? What's the impact? And it does get a bit uncomfortable. It really, really does get a bit uncomfortable. I'm not going to say much. I'm going to hand it over to other people
On
as
that
well.
very fabulous note, I'm going to wrap up this panel. A big thank you to everyone on the stage joining me. Caroline Nelson, Country Manager for H&M South Africa. Zakela Ngobozi, Founder and Managing Director of Modern Centric Holdings. Craig Barnes, he's the Chairperson of the LGBTQIA Forum at Nedbank. And Sikolile Nklobu, Senior Advisor for Gender Equality and Sustainable Development at the Commission for Gender Equality. It's been an absolute blast wrapping up day 2, and I hope everyone has a fabulous Thursday evening further.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I love
Finally, we get to hear the buzzer. In terms of, I think I've heard it like 3 times today. Yesterday, I barely heard it. And it's actually it's soft and it's nice. It's nice. All right, let's go into our final case study for the day. We've got Prime Media. who is our media partner, who is going to give us a case study on the power of storytelling and how media can empower marginalized communities. And we've got Georgia Wilkins, who is the Executive Marketing and Marketing Services, Prime Media Outdoor. A round of applause, please. Thank you for the billboards. Yeah.
Of course,
There's
thank
one
you.
in Cape Town and Joburg. Sorry.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying strong throughout the afternoon or going into the evening. I'm sure you've all enjoyed today. It has been incredibly insightful. I have learned a lot and truly inspired. It's an honor to stand here and to be part of this esteemed conference, and of course, media partners to this wonderful conference. So today we delve into the fascinating topic that often goes unnoticed. You see the billboards on the side of the road, but the true power is in what the billboards do in transforming communities. This is a billboard, right? So for the past 12 years, I've been traveling across South Africa, across a number of different communities with Prime Media. And these billboards have played a crucial role in shaping the visual landscape. They showcase products, brands, and local businesses, bringing a splash of color and vitality to these communities. They've actually become a focal point for some communities, where people go meet at certain billboards or rank branding sites or any landmark location, and they'll share stories. There'll be social gatherings where people will exchange the stories, catch up on news, and stay connected. But billboards have always been there. I'm sure this looks quite familiar, right? This is a number of years old, almost decades. Okay, the one that I showed previously is a newer format. So billboards have always been there. I remember seeing these billboards traveling across South Africa with my family many years ago. And as times have changed over the decades, we have seen significant technological and infrastructure developments across South Africa. And after all these years, I find myself as executive at Prime Media Outdoor still pushing the button on how amazing billboards are, and not just for the positioning of the product, the advertiser, and the brand, but for actually what they do for the communities. And I'm going to get into a lot of detail on that. Don't worry, I'm watching the clock, so don't stress about that. And I'd like to say that the billboard has definitely taken the title as the people's medium. Billboards have earned the right to be here by giving back to the communities, and I'm honored to work for a company that not only supports the economy, it enriches communities and fosters community cohesion, and offers a unique opportunity for sustainable partnerships. So I just want to take a brief look at who Prime Media Outdoor is in terms of where we are, our coverage, and how the community part really sinks into that, and we'll get into that in a bit more detail. So billboards go beyond the literal means of advertising. This means that not only billboards provide impactful brand messaging, but they also serve as agents of positive change within communities. Primedia Outdoor fully embraces transformation, and this is at the front of our agenda. We are the front runner in developing bespoke syndication partnerships that truly grow and give life, as well as long-standing market presence to relevant women and Black-owned businesses trading within South Africa. We are committed to adding value to the communities we trade in by growing smaller businesses synergistically, allowing our partners to fully maintain their unique entrepreneurial identity. So let's get into a bit more detail. This is a new build of a billboard, right? It's not just about the new build, but it's the continuous maintenance that goes on with billboards. So billboards are more than eye-catching displays. They contribute to the economy by creating job opportunities in various sectors. So of course you've got the marketing, you've got the engineering, you've got maintenance crews and all of that. So the amount that we support the economy is incredibly important to note. In addition, Primedia empowered our operational teams to start new businesses across the country and be successful sole entities in the industry at large. Local businesses benefit from our billboards as well. By advertising their products and services, they attract customers, increase sales, and support economic growth within the community. The ripple effect of the economic boost extends beyond the billboard itself, benefiting businesses and individuals alike. Billboards have become the people's medium. I did mention this earlier, giving voice to various causes and messages that help shape our communities. By showcasing initiatives, billboards empower individuals and inspire collective action. Billboards contribute to urban revitalization efforts and support infrastructure maintenance and development in different environments across the country, including taxi ranks and malls. The advertising you see as an example in this particular taxi rank supports infrastructure development of the taxi rank, of the taxi associations, the owners of the building as well. Municipalities can establish a sustainable source of funding for community development projects, infrastructure improvements, and support for local schools and public services through billboard advertising. You'll see that a number of schools across, sorry, if I move away, it goes a bit funny. You'll see a number of schools across provinces will have billboards, and the rental that we pay towards goes towards the school in terms of supporting them, could be for infrastructure or any development needs that are needed within that school. Billboards present a distinct avenue for fostering sustainable partnerships within communities nationwide. Primedia, in collaboration with Food and Trees for Africa, has undertaken a community initiative with a specific focus on sustainable practices. Through this partnership, efforts have been dedicated to planting trees and establishing food gardens, aiming to address local communities' concerns regarding food security. This is a recent garden that we did in Khayelitsha in Cape Town. Primedia prides itself on finding innovative ways to reuse and repurpose materials. And that's why, I mean, there's the discussions that were made today very much close to my heart in terms of the sustainability side and how we can improve from a green perspective. So we look at ways to reuse and repurpose materials in order to reduce the wastage in the out-of-home industry and affect positive change in organizations and communities that we support. To date, we have donated just over 15,000 square meters of used billboard posters. These are to be recycled, upcycled, repurposed, contributing to our ongoing efforts towards sustainability. Here's a wonderful picture of one of the companies that we support, entrepreneurial company, where they've been able to employ a number of people to make products such as bags, sleeping bags, blankets, and the like. These initiatives create jobs and foster entrepreneurship. So ladies and gentlemen, today we have explored the multifaceted impact of billboards in our communities. So the next time you drive past a billboard, it's not just about the advertising or the brand that is on there, but what is it actually doing to the community? Remember, we are supporting the economy, we're creating jobs, we are supporting communities, we are fostering cohesion within communities, and also creating landmarks that become memorable for a number of people. Let us embrace the power of billboards and use them as tools for positive change. Let's encourage advertisers, community organizations, and local governments to leverage the medium to foster inclusivity, sustainability, and economic development. Together, we can transform billboards from mere advertising platforms into catalysts for community upliftment. Let's harness this potential to engage, inspire, and unite us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georgia. Thank you very, very much. Did I say it right, Georgia?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
got it.
100%.
Thank you. Georgia, thank you very, very much. Very interesting to see the power of billboards, and we do know the power of billboards. They're absolutely, they are landmarks. They really are, and they just form part of our conscience as we're driving. It's quite amazing. We basically at the end, but I just want to introduce Janine onto the stage. So Janine Brown is the senior conference producer for what we've experienced over the last 2 days from Topco Media, and Tabiso Mohlabeng, who's the digital marketing executive of Topco Media. Let me invite both of you up to do the vote of thanks and to pretty much wrap things up for us today.
There we go. Is my mic on?
Are we on? Are we on?
Hi everyone. I know everybody is a bit tired. It's, we've had so much information, thrown at you and everything.
Yeah.
But I hope you enjoyed the last 2 days. But before anything else, this is who I am. I'm Tabiso. I'm a boy from Kasi.
Come
first
on.
thing first. So, when we have events like this, we come and then we talk and we talk and we talk. But I want to speak to most of you because most of you here are decision makers. There's a saying, the youth do not have the skills. There's a saying, youth go to school. Guys, youth will never have skills until you hire them and you give them those skills. Yeah. That's one thing that I want to say. Hire the youth, get them into your offices, get them to work, and they'll be great one day. A woman took a chance on me without experience, and today here I am. Topco took a chance on me, and here I am. But anyway, I'm not here to, give a speech myself. I'm just here to run a bit of some competitions. Ooh. And
So-
there's a winner. We did tell you to visit some expo booths. If you did not, you're going to miss out. We did tell you. Someone dropped a card.
And that
Hopefully
is
it's
for
your name.
our Mandate Molefe competition.
Yes, thank you to Mandate Molefe.
So
Let's
our
hope you're
winner
in the room.
is Kilebuchile from Joe Public.
And you can come and get your prize. You can come and
Come
get
and
your
get your
prize.
prize.
Congratulations, congratulations.
Congratulations.
This is why it's important to visit expo booths when you're at the conference. So
Do you
I'm
want to
just
say a
saying-
speech? I'm joking.
Congratulations, congratulations. You're welcome, you're welcome. And we have another competition. This one is for companies.
What happened
So-
to the printer from this morning? Where's our printer? Okay.
So I'm just going to invite someone from TSL Telecoms to join us on stage to make the competition a bit fair. Did you drop your business card in there, or are you thinking of dropping it now?
Come on.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Let's see.
Awesome,
Shake it,
awesome.
shake it. Come on.
Oh, okay. I think I'm loving the stage now, guys. I think I'm loving this. All right. For fairness, I'm gonna put my hand without looking. Just for fairness, if you're not here, I'm gonna skip you and I'm gonna go to the next name. So only those in the room can win. Is that fair?
Yes.
Awesome. So,
I'm gonna audit the votes.
All right.
I need to audit what's happening.
Okay. Here's the first business card. Revel Harris.
There's somebody
Congratulations to Revel. You win a printer from TSL Telecoms.
Okay.
It's a bit heavy. I was not going to carry that.
I'm sorry, we don't have the printer with us.
Thank you very much. Clive
Okay.
Nkosi, we just want to thank TSL Telecoms for the prize. And there's many more prizes. But once again, from me and my team, I just want to say thank you. But I'm going to leave everything to Janine, our conference producer. She was amazing. Didn't she put an amazing conference, guys? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so cute.
All right, thank you. Or just
Come
a nice
stand
quick.
with me. You want to
Clive, a quick
Sorry.
quick. Revel, quick. Thank you. And then we're gonna get off the stage. I promise I'm gonna get off
We
the
promise
stage.
you're going to go home. There's no more detention. We promise.
Thank you. All right, and the stage is yours, Janine.
Okay, quickly. I'm so sorry. You know, I've been dealing with speakers the entire week, so I couldn't help but make myself a keynote speaker. Come on now. So, as we bring this extraordinary event to a close, I'm filled with so much gratitude for the incredible team and their unwavering support, to all the speakers that have been dealing with me, calling them, sending them 100 emails, telling them millions of dates changing. I want to say thank you to everybody that has availed themselves for this cause. I want to thank every media partner that has been with us from the start to Prime Media. I want to thank Channel Africa. I want to just thank everybody who's been here on this journey. And in the build-up to the conference, something actually happened. I was chatting to my mom, and she was like, I was talking to her about the misrepresentation of the BEE laws that's happening in the media. And she said to me, girl, what do you know about BEE? You know, BEE was happening, I think, she looked at me, she said, BEE is happening before you were born. You know, and I said to her, Mommy, the BEE commissioner told me himself over the phone. And, you know, that's what this conference is about. It's about people like me and people like Zakele, who was on the stage, who can come here and connect with different people and to say, actually, I heard it from the horse's mouth. And I'm really excited that this is the start. This is only the beginning. This is 2023 Top Empowerment. I can't wait to see each of you, to journey with you, to get your speaker contacts. If you know somebody, holla at me. I'm always looking for a new connection, to make sure that this stage is not just gate-kept for the corporates, that it is for the individuals, for the people who need to hear their voices heard, and for the people that have a message that needs to be displayed. And before I close, I just want to say thank you to two special people from Nedbank who have really assisted me in this journey. They've been on numerous MS Teams calls with me, alignments, all those sorts of things. It's Lucky and Shanti from Nedbank. I just want to say thank you so much for Lucky and Shanti, as well as Claire, Sasha, Apiwe, Nazreen, Alex, Nick, Yunal, Juanita, and the rest of the Topconians in Cape Town, in Harpin. This is for Harpin viewers. And then, again, together we strive to advance Africa's purpose-led transformation forward. And I want to ask you guys, do you think we succeeded today? Yeah. Do you think we succeeded this week? Come on. So for those of you who don't know, tonight we're having the awards. So for those of you who are going, we can't wait to see you all dressed up in your glitz and glam. I know that for some of you, the makeup takes a couple of hours. So I'm going to leave you to it. Can I break Leanne? Seeps, you can come back to the stage. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you in 2024. Yeah.
Wow, Janine, you got energy. Thank goodness for Janine's energy. Sure. Hey, we are depleted.
Is this the closing?
Hey, we are depleted. We are information overload depleted. We need to go and think about all of this. But I must say, it's been a fantastic 2 days, and I've loved being with you. I really have. It's been so nice to be standing with you and working and seeing this wonderful new talent that's rising up. So
Thank
it's
you so
great.
much. Thank you so much, Leanne.
What do you mean? You guys have been the best. To the end, right from the beginning, all the way to the end. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Together. We're here.
We're all in this together. So it's been amazing. It really has been wonderful being with you during this. And who's going to the gala dinner later? Anyone here? So there's a few of you that are going. Best you sort of start getting ready and rocking on, but you're on your own.
So it's done. It's complete now. We've closed it off.
We've closed it off.
All
We've
right.
done it. Let me see. Is there anything else? Anything else we need to remind you? No. All you need to know is register for the 2024 Nedbank Top Empowerment Conference. 7:30 sharp. Not that African time that we spoke about yesterday, the proper African time. That's what time the event starts this evening. Bless you all, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Travel safe, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
she not type for me. Me promise that she get pipe for me. White like cause me white face, girl, dirty wine for me. You know me up in her eyes, her vision bring it wide out. Some of her wise, them niggas fucking my vibe. I'm at the back of my line, they got to get on my mind now. You can combine, you taking over my time and night. Unity Antonia, every single Antonia and see. I wonder why you take me back, why you make me like every time that I love. Actually, you got it, gorgeous. Casually, you got it, big freedom. Come body to body, flawless. Somebody, cool body. Actually, you got it, gorgeous. Casually, you got it, big freedom. Come body to body, flawless. Somebody, cool body.
Valid, they ain't gotta validate me. Came looking